Welcome to Fully Booked, the bookish podcast where I'll chat about all things book and reading related. Whether you're a new or a pro reader, there's something for everyone to learn. I'm here to help you on your reading journey and find that next great read that will keep you fully booked. Hello, readers, and welcome to episode 38 of Fully Booked. I'm your host, Natalie, and today's episode is going to be all about my summer TBR. So, originally, I was going to release this episode a bit later, since technically the first day of summer is June 20th this year. However, I feel like for me, especially now as an adult, summer really starts at the start of June. The mornings slowly start to get warmer, it's nice enough to sit outdoors at cafes or parks any time of day, and we finally start to shed the last of our outer layers, i.e. jackets and sweaters. Of course, this is talking yet again as a person who lives on the East Coast. Maybe people from the West Coast and people more in the southern areas can't relate exactly the same. But nevertheless, with the sun fully shining, that means it's time to break out those books for some perfect outdoor reading time. Also, personally, my spring was very busy, as well as the weather was insanely unpredictable this year. And i.e., we had snow mid-April still, just to give you an idea. So I'm hoping I get to have some cute outdoor park sessions, maybe on a picnic blanket with iced coffee and snacks, which is why I've chosen this selection of 6 books to talk about today. I can't lie, it's tempting to choose all beach read type books when summer hits, but as always, I want to keep things interesting and not have 6 of the same book to talk about today. Not to mention that some of us, including myself, don't live near enough to the nice beaches that we can go to every day. But anyways, without further ado, let's actually dive into the 6 books I've put on my summer TBR. Alright, so to start off this TBR, we have One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune. So this one was discussed in my Coming Soon to Your CR episode back in January, so I'll try not to repeat what was said there. But for those of you who don't know, this one is technically an interconnected standalone to her other book, Every Summer After, where we follow the older brother Charlie in this new one. And I'm personally kind of excited to return back to Barry's Bay and this universe, as I was actually a fan of Charlie in that first book. Although the one trope that happened still makes things a little questionable, but we'll disregard that for now. Otherwise, I'm curious to see how this one goes, as I feel like some people are finding her books are getting a little predictable with certain plots and tropes. Ahem, brothers. But, TBH, maybe it's because I'm a little more lenient when it comes to rating books set in the summertime that I'm not always focused so hard on the details and don't seem to mind. Okay, so this next one is gonna change up the tone completely here, which is Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. So this is his thriller that released last year, and of course, I had to put one thriller on my summer TBR, to keep things spicy, but also because I do want to continue reading through Riley Sager's backlist. And I'm just gonna read the description for this one because it's not one I've heard as much about and know the summary by heart. Okay, in the latest jaw-dropping thriller from New York Times bestselling author Riley Sager, a man must contend with the long-ago disappearance of his childhood best friend, and the dark secrets lurking just beyond the safe confines of his picture-perfect neighborhood. The worst thing to ever happen on Hemlock Circle occurred in Ethan Marsh's backyard. One July night, 10-year-old Ethan and his best friend and neighbor, Billy, fell asleep in a tent set up on a manicured lawn in a quiet, quaint New Jersey cul-de-sac. In the morning, Ethan woke up alone. During the night, someone had sliced the tent open with a knife and taken Billy. He was never seen again. 30 years later, Ethan has reluctantly returned to his childhood home. Plagued by bad dreams and insomnia, he begins to notice strange things happening in the middle of the night. Someone seems to be roaming the cul-de-sac at odd hours, and signs of Billy's presence keep appearing in Ethan's backyard. Is someone playing a cruel prank? Or has Billy, long thought to be dead, somehow returned to Hemlock Circle? The mysterious occurrences prompt Ethan to investigate what really happened that night, a quest that reunites him with former friends and neighbors and leads him into the woods that surround Hemlock Circle. Woods where Billy claimed monsters roamed and where a mysterious institute does clandestine research on a crumbling estate. The closer Ethan gets to the truth, the more he realizes that no place, be it quiet forest or suburban street, is completely safe. And that the past has a way of haunting the present. I'm honestly excited to read this one as, for me at least, Riley Sager always has some new and different elements in each of his books, and they're not just repeats written over and over again. And this one will also be interesting as I believe majority of his books, and all the ones I've read so far, have female main characters. So this will be the first book that I will read told from a male perspective. So again, I'm just curious to see how it reads and how he writes these themes and setting. Also, I want to note that I haven't read a good thriller in a few months, so really hoping this one does the trick. Also, this is probably very unrelated to this book, but every time I hear that phrase in some form, middle of the night, I always think of that Taylor Swift song, in the middle of the night, in my dreams, I know I'm gonna be with you, so I'll take my time. Anyways, with that, let's move on to our next book, which is The Wedding People by Alison Espach. And apologies, by the way, I'm not sure how to say that last name. I kind of just took a guess there. Anyways, this is another book that won a Goodreads Choice Award. I think it won the award last year, if I'm not mistaken. As well as, I feel like a lot of people online were picking up this book around the summertime. So it just felt fitting. I don't really know how to describe this book. So again, I'm just going to read you guys the summary for this one. Okay. It says, it's a beautiful day in Newport, Rhode Island, when Phoebe Stone arrives at the Grand Cornwall Inn wearing a green dress and gold heels, not a bag in sight, alone. She's immediately mistaken by everyone in the lobby for one of the wedding people, but she's actually the only guest at the Cornwall who isn't here for the big event. Phoebe is here because she's dreamed of coming for years. She hoped to shuck oysters and take sunset sails with her husband, only now she's here without him, at rock bottom, and determined to have one last decadent splurge on herself. Meanwhile, the bride is counted for every detail and every possible disaster the weekend might yield, except for, well, Phoebe and Phoebe's plan, which makes it that much more surprising when the two women can't stop confiding in each other. In turns absurdly funny and devastatingly tender, Alison Espach's The Wedding People is ultimately an incredibly nuanced and resonant look at the winding paths we can take to places we never imagined, and the chance encounters it sometimes takes to reroute us. I hope this book does have some lighthearted moments because reading that summary and looking at the rest of my list, it appears I'm going to have more of a sad girl summer in terms of my reading. But needless to say, if I'm craving something a little less fluffy for my beach and outdoor reading, then this book might be it. Hey readers, I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. And hear me out before you hit skip. I'm so grateful for all my listeners who are with me on this reading journey, and I'd like to ask that if you haven't yet, please leave a rating and review as it helps others find the podcast. Also, please consider supporting the podcast financially as it helps me bring you more exciting content, and you'll get some extras like bonus and subscriber-only episodes, early access to new episodes, and much more. The link to donate will be in the show notes below, or you can go to buymeacoffee.com/fullybookedpod. Thank you so much again for choosing to listen to Fully Booked, and now back to the episode. Alright, so the next book on my summer TBR is one that's looking to be a bit of a lighter read, finally, and that is Sounds Like Love by Ashley Poston. This is another book that I talked about in my Coming Soon episode, but if you don't know, this is her latest upcoming magical realism release. And I'm curious to read this one, not only because I've loved all of Ashley Poston's books, but in addition, if you didn't know this was magical realism, the premise sounds kind of crazy because it's basically about these two musicians who can hear each other's voices in their heads, and then they try to write a song together, consequently. So I'm interested to see what the magical realism concept is going to be in this book, as well as how creative she gets with this musical element. Not to mention that I think this will still be a fun summer read with the small town North Carolina setting and the concerts. So yes, hoping this one lives up to the standard of her previous books. Okay, and moving along to the next book on this TBR, which is 28 Summers by Ellen Hildebrand. Also, I just want to note that I always teeter between saying Ellen and Elin because her name is spelled with an I. So I've been very confused about how to say her first name. But everyone I see online says Ellen Hildebrand. So I'm just going to go with that for now. And if I am saying it incorrectly, please feel free to correct me on that. But anyways, this one I picked to give Miss Ellen Hildebrand a second chance. Plus, I feel like this book is her quintessential read, as in it's the one book that everyone reads by her. So basically, if you don't know, in this story, we're focused on this son and his dying mother who gives him instructions to call the man who has been her lover over the span of 28 years. Hence the title 28 Summers. And that really is the gist of this story. And it looks like we basically go through the story and the timeline of their friendship and love affair. And her lover, Jake, in this story is married. So it really is an affair. And I'm going to be honest. I haven't seen or read many romance or litfic books that tackle having an affair of any kind or, I don't know, of this sort, which is probably for good reason, as this is a tricky area to write about. I'm curious to see if I do like her writing style in this one, because if you guys remember from, I guess, my previous reading wrap-up, I was not very interested when I read Winter in Paradise. And I just also want to see how well she pulls off this premise and storyline. So needless to say, this sounds like it won't make for light beach reading, even though the book is set in Nantucket. And with that, the final book that I have on my summer TBR is none other than Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. So, running off today's episode and TBR with, again, another more litfic, decades-spanning novel by the one and only Kristen Hanna. I partly chose it because parts of it take place during the summer, but honestly, I really just wanted an excuse to pick up another Kristen Hanna book because I want to read her entire backlist. And in this one, we follow two best friends, Tully and Kate, over the course of 3 decades, starting from their teen years, and we watch them navigate life from girlhood to womanhood, with all the love, loss, and enduring power of friendship that comes with that. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't really bother reading details of this book's summary because I already knew I wanted to read it. Whether I'm going to read the sequel, because surprise, this isn't a standalone, is TBD, as well as whether I will watch the Netflix adaptation of this book. I guess maybe it'll depend on how much I end up enjoying this book or not. And that concludes all the books on my summer TBR. I hope you enjoyed hearing about all these different reads, and I have to admit, I feel like, again, I really didn't pick a lot of light, fluffy summer romances, so it'll be interesting to see what other books I end up picking up besides these ones. Otherwise, I'd love to hear what books are on your summer TBR, so maybe I can get some more inspiration for when I do have those park or beach days. And with that, as always, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you back here for episode 39. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you were able to take away something, and be sure to follow the podcast for more bookish content. Until next time, stay fully booked, and I'll talk to you soon.